Thank you very much for joining me on this Monday. I'm Brian Shields. Let's get right to it. Watching two areas now. This one looks like it'll be a tropical storm rather soon. I'm going to track that, where it's going to go, how close it's going to get to the Caribbean, and where in the Caribbean we need to watch out for this. And a second one back behind it. It is getting very active out there. I'll cover both of those, watching all of those computer models. I want to dive into those for you and what could change this system. So I'll have all of that plus the forecast over the next couple of days. So here's the big picture. It's this one here that I'm watching very closely. The one back behind it, plenty of time to monitor that. We'll see what that wants to do. I'll get into that as well. But you see this big blob here, it looks a lot different from yesterday. A big flare up of the thunderstorms. You see the brighter colors? That's telling me we have taller storms in there, which means it is getting more organized. It is getting stronger as it continues to march toward the Caribbean as we go over the next few days. Now, here are the latest computer models. Still a few want to curve this away, like the American model, and I'll show you that. And then more want to bring it into the Caribbean. There's a higher chance that this system slides into the Caribbean later this week. Now, what does that mean? I'm not seeing anything making this a crazy hurricane at this point, but with that said, intensity is very tough to always tell. That's kind of always the struggle on the forecasting intensity, but more and more the models bring at least rain into the Caribbean, and I'll get into that specifically. Now, this map I showed you yesterday, this kind of chart, if you will, this tells me how strong this could be based on what the computer models are seeing, okay? I know it's kind of, there's a lot of lines here, there's a lot of stuff going on, but almost all of the models over time bring it into this green shading you're seeing here, okay? So then that's tropical storm force. So almost all of the models are making this a tropical storm. And then some of them bring it into this yellow shading, even orange shading, making it a hurricane. But what is interesting is down the road, all the models then have some weakening. You see how those lines go down? That tells me down the road, as this gets closer to the Caribbean, there could actually be weakening on the flip side of that, and that's because of the wind shear. So again, it will get stronger. It could become a hurricane, and then it looks like way down the road, there could actually be some weakening of this because of what's going on in the environment. There's a lot of dust and a lot of wind shear, and I'll dive into that. So National Hurricane Center watching both of these, again, still giving this a high chance of development, a very high chance as this approaches the Caribbean. Lower chance with the wave back behind it. The models are kind of mixed on that. Some of them have that develop, some of them don't, but most of the models latching onto this bigger wave that is headed toward the Caribbean as we go over the next couple of days. And again, this is something we've been talking about together on this channel over the last few weeks. And again, thank you for sharing this channel, getting the correct information out there to your friends and family. I can put some of the links, info on WhatsApp, and just get it out there, get that right information out. All right, here's the American model, the GFS. Let me stop it here. So this is by the time we get into midweek. This is by the time we get into Wednesday. So Wednesday afternoon, you see it here. Here's the Caribbean, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Puerto Rico. A blob of rain here as well. Not seeing signs of development, but I want you to know Western Caribbean or Jamaica, Cayman Islands, I'm keeping a very close eye on this as that lifts toward Cuba, and that could bring some rain even up toward the Bahamas and Florida. But here are the two tropical waves that I'm watching. The American model still has this becoming a hurricane, kind of intensifying further, and then making that sharp turn, missing the Caribbean. So it's still latching onto that. But again, more and more of the models are taking more of a route into the Caribbean. But you see here, this is by Friday. If it kind of follows the American model, it would become a strong tropical storm, potentially a hurricane, and then completely miss the Caribbean. So that's not out of the question. It's not the likely scenario, but it's still not out of the question. Again, we have days and days to watch this, and you can see it kind of lifting to the north, and then I'll keep an eye on Bermuda, of course. Now, here's the European model, and I'm leaning a little bit more toward this solution, okay? The intensity is going to be a question, but I'm leaning a little bit more toward this track. Now, here are those two tropical waves. Here's the Caribbean right here, okay? So just taking you out in time. This is today. So watching this. Now, the European model has strengthening, but not as quick, but it does bring it into about a tropical depression or tropical storm rather soon. Let me stop the clock. This is by the time we get into Wednesday. So this would be Wednesday morning. Here's the Caribbean. High pressure to the north, helping to keep it down to the south, acting like a fence, kind of keeping it down to the south. And you see it here. By the way, that second tropical wave, not much development. But this would be a tropical depression, potentially a tropical storm approaching the Caribbean. But like I talked about yesterday, a very close call between tropical storm impacts or just a weakening system and a big rain event. okay, because it has it weakened somewhat as it works into the Caribbean. That's because of the wind shear that I'll show you in a second. Remember, I just showed you all those squiggly lines? Eventually, it has some weakening. So as it heads into the Caribbean, it could actually fall apart some. And then there's that second tropical wave that is back behind us. So that is by Thursday night. And then you see by the time we get into Friday and the weekend, it just kind of has it fall apart. Both tropical waves, not really systems. You could see, or tropical areas, not really systems. You see some of the extra rain that could be possible this weekend. Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. And then there's that blob there. The European doesn't really do too much to that second wave back behind it. Let me give you a closer look on this. Okay, so here's the same model. This is by the time we get into Wednesday morning. There it is. Here's the Caribbean, and you can see it here as a tropical storm most likely. This, as a tropical storm, would approach the Caribbean by the time we get into Thursday. So it's approaching it, but it would start to move in on Thursday. So again, we got about a day to get a good handle on this, to get a good handle on the strength. But let me take you out in time here. So watching that, and you can see it here as we go out in time. And let me stop the clock as we work our way into later this week. This is as we get into Thursday night, and stopping it here. And again, moving in Thursday night. So again, later on Thursday, we could get some rain. Thursday night, some gustier winds into Friday if the European model holds. And we're looking St. Lucia, Barbados north, so more so, and I'm going to dive into that in a second, near Dominica, a chance of some of that squally weather. But it's not showing a crazy hurricane. My friends in Puerto Rico, I want you to pass along this information. I'm not seeing this as a hurricane. Again, if it changes, I'll let you know. If I see any changes, I'll do another video, let you know what's happening. But you can see here as we work our way into Friday, this would be Friday morning, a lot of rain working into the northeastern Caribbean, which could be a good thing because, you know, we desperately need to get some of the rain because of the water restrictions and water shortages. And then as it works its way more so as we get into the weekend, just falling apart and really nothing at all at that point. But it's going to be a close call. If it's a tropical storm here, how quickly will it weaken? So on the backside, again, watching some of that rain as we get down the road. So let me break this down further for you. Here's the Canadian model. The Canadian model is more in line with that European model. And again, most of the models are. The exception seems to be that American model that I showed you. So again, watching these two tropical waves, here's the Canadian, this here, the Caribbean, and watching the Canadian model kind of pick up on these waves. Now, as we go over time, this is today. Let me bring out in time and watching again this first one in particular as it moves off. It shows some development. You see it could become a tropical depression, tropical storm, and then approaching the Caribbean. This is by the time we get into Wednesday morning, potentially as a tropical storm. Again, this is very similar to what we were seeing with that European model. So this is a more likely scenario. And again, that second tropical wave that I'm watching back behind it may or may not develop some. That one's not a huge concern at this point. I know we've got a couple things out there, watching them all. And then same thing as the European model. As it approaches, this is by the time we get into later on Thursday, heavy rain works into parts of the eastern Caribbean. That's getting more and more likely, but it shows some weakening once again, which is telling me both the European and the Canadian models are picking up on the environmental conditions that are showing the wind shear in here, which I'll show you. And there's that second tropical wave. So this would bring heavier rain starting on Thursday into Friday, and then some rain working back toward Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, as we get into later on Thursday. But Friday and Saturday, you see some of the rain here, and there's that next tropical wave there that's starting to make a little bit of a curve out. But a lot going on with this. But again, the Canadian model, very similar to the European model. And there's a billion models out there. I'm looking at some of the bigger ones here for you. The Canadian model, European model in line, as well as a lot of the other computer models. All right, so that's the Canadian. Now, what does this mean specifically across the Caribbean? What do we need to watch out for? Now, the European model and the Canadian are more to the west. That is a more likely scenario. Neither one are showing a crazy hurricane at this point. Could that change? Of course. Things change with the weather. We're going out in time, right? But I just showed you what I'm seeing out there. And the American model, that's the one that makes more of a curve. If that happens, I'll keep an eye out for Bermuda and again eastern sections of Canada down the road as that would curve away. But again, more and more of the models, more of that westerly route. Now I mentioned that weakening. Look at this red shading in here. Here's Florida, the Bahamas, here's Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. This is out in time. This is by the time we get into Thursday, Wednesday into Thursday. So this would be the system right here. You see it there, approaching, okay? But look at all this wind shear. There's a ton of wind shear. Those are winds way above our heads that could kind of knock apart the system, which is a good thing. That's what we would like. So it's going to be a close call with the timing. We could get a system approaching, then it runs into the wind shear, and then it will weaken the system. That's why it does show weakening down the road. But how quickly does that happen? Does it happen after it already passes over some of our islands, or does it happen before? And that's still a big question mark. So as we go now, Haiti swinging all the way back through Puerto Rico, down through Trinidad and Tobago. Keep a close eye on this system, of course, a very close eye on this. Share this info to kind of combat some of that bad information that is out there, and we're going to monitor this closely. Let me zoom down a little bit further. Now, from Puerto Rico, swinging back, these are kind of the hot spots. If the European model and the Canadian model come kind of true over the next few days, by Thursday and Friday, late this week, these are the areas we need to watch out for a rain event and that possibility of a tropical storm moving in. Now, the strength, as I mentioned, that is the bigger question. The track's still uncertain, but the strength, a bigger question. So Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, St. Maarten, St. Bart's, Anguilla, Saba, as you get towards St. Kitts, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, you see on this map, down through about Martinique, okay? That's where we could get a bigger rain event. Now, as you get down toward St. Lucia, Barbados, we're keeping a close eye on that as well to see just how close this will get. But it's the northeastern Caribbean. You see on your map right here, this is where we need a little bit more of a heightened alert depending on what happens with this system. So all eyes need to be on this as it approaches. Tomorrow I'll be able to give you further specifics, kind of get down island by island for you to let you know what could happen as this gets closer. So I'm going to do that right here on this channel. Winds that you could expect, rain you could expect, or if it just simply misses us. All right, so here's a look at the American model back toward the winds. Just want to show you this. Still some gusty winds, of course, through the Caribbean, some choppy seas at times, but you see it again winding up. If the American model comes true, we'll see this becoming a hurricane. Very strong winds as we get toward the end of the week, but missing the Caribbean. You see those winds, but I want to point this out because we have a lot of captains, mariners, fishing interest on this channel. Either way, the seas are going to really be building in here, and then of course over toward the Caribbean if it moves in, or if it moves up like the American model, those seas will be much higher in some of the open waters of the Atlantic. So I'm watching that as well. Higher seas are going to be building. All right, here's the dust. Here's the Caribbean. We've had some dust, of course, in some spots, even over toward the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. Some of that dust right now, especially the northeastern Caribbean. But you see these systems here? These are the two I'm watching. Most of the dust is just to the north, so the dust is not having much of an impact. The impact could be that shear that I was watching. So dust, less of an impact. The shear is more of the issue. So again, this tropical system, the GFS, the American model, making this a hurricane, missing the Caribbean, the European model, and a lot of the others make this a tropical storm. It could bring tropical storm conditions to parts of the Caribbean by about Thursday and Friday. But it's the question mark really is the wind shear. How much wind shear kind of gets into this, or affects this system, I should say, and how quickly do we get that weakening? But we're watching for that higher rain potential either way. And again, get this info out to kind of go against some of that bad info that we've been seeing out there with this system. All right, next name on the list is Brett. So if this blob gets a name, which it's looking like it will, it would become Tropical Storm Brett, a tropical depression first, and then Tropical Storm Brett most likely. Cindy, Don, Emily, Franklin, and Gert after that. Now let me zoom down and then get you to some forecast as well and what I'm looking at. Now, as we get a closer look, here's this area here, and I am watching this. I've had some questions on this in the Western Caribbean. We've seen this blob. I'm just not seeing a ton of development out of this, but I'm watching this near Honduras and Nicaragua, Costa Rica. Again, some spots have gotten dumped on with rain, others not so much at all. And watching scattered showers, Trinidad and Tobago, even back through Puerto Rico, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. We've had some of that rain in spots scattered about this morning. Watching near Guyana, we've had some flooding. Same thing in Suriname the last few days. So zooming down to this, and then we're going to keep an eye on this system that's approaching in the Atlantic. See some of the extra rain here. Parts of Honduras, Nicaragua, and Belize, the rain chance does go up a little bit. I'll show you that in a second. Not super high, but it does tick up. Now, as we go out in time, Panama, by the way, also watching that rain. Colombia, scattered showers. Venezuela, again, Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire. Once again, we're kind of in between. But some of this rain from today into tomorrow will start to build and lift to the north. So I'll be watching that trend, as I mentioned, Cayman Islands and Jamaica, Cuba, Bahamas, up through Florida. seeing that chance of rain increasing again as we get toward the end of the week. So this is by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon. This blob still kind of down here, just hanging out south of the Cayman Islands, south of Jamaica, as we get into tomorrow afternoon. Then moving forward, we're going to see as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, some of this moisture will gather and lift. So we'll be watching this moisture lift, and then we'll be keeping an eye on that system over there that will be getting closer. But you see this rain trying to lift through as we get into Wednesday. Again, there is always a slight chance of a spin up. The water temperatures, I just checked in, they are super warm here. We're looking at like about 30 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'll keep an eye on that. But this moisture will then kind of lift up to the north as we get toward Thursday. And again, watching this system that is trying to approach, of course, the eastern Caribbean as we get into later this week. Heaviest rain actually stays over in the water, coastal sections, Honduras, Nicaragua, and then down through Costa Rica, Panama, we could get some spots over 75 millimeters of rain, scattered showers elsewhere, but looking out for the potential of a bigger rain event later this week with a chance of a tropical storm moving in and working in Thursday and Friday for parts of the eastern Caribbean. So Belize, the next few days, rain chance goes up. That's a great thing. It's not a washout though. It's more of that scattered stuff, so some spots stay dry, but a 40 to 50% chance. Jamaica, 20% chance today, 30% chance tomorrow, up to a 40% chance on Wednesday. Watching that area just down to the south. Haiti, 30-40% chance over the next few days. Keeping a very close eye on the end of the week, because if we get some extra rain moving in even Friday and Saturday with this tropical system, that would mean a flood threat. The Dominican Republic, you see rain chance 40-50% the next couple days. That would be some scattered showers and storms. And again, watching later this week for that tropical system. Puerto Rico, isolated storms, very hot. It is dusty around. We still have some of that excessive heat that we're dealing with. Same thing from Puerto Rico back through the British Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands. Passing shower, 20-30% chance the next couple days. Of course, all eyes will be on what's going on to the east of us. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, 20-30% chance. Anguilla, and again, watching later this week for the potential of tropical storm impacts. St. Kitts and Nevis, 20% chance of rain the next couple days. Isolated in nature still on Wednesday. And then as we get into Antigua and Barbuda, again, watching what's going on in the open waters of the Atlantic. But in the meantime, the next couple days, rain chance stays limited. Dominica, it'll pick up some on Wednesday, a 40% chance. Of course, Thursday could be a whole lot higher if this system works in. St. Lucia, 30-40% chance today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Same thing toward Barbados. That's more in the way of passing showers over the next couple days for Barbados. Trinidad and Tobago, even down through Guyana and Suriname, it will be higher. We're looking at a 50% chance today near Trinidad, 60% chance tomorrow. End of the week, it looks like whatever happens with this system will mainly be to the north, but still, please keep a close eye on that, and I will as well. So monitor this very, very closely, because my concern always is the track I'll be able to get a good handle on, and it's looking more and more like this will come closer to the Caribbean. But the biggest issue, the struggle always is the intensity. We've seen storms very weak and then they explode quickly. The good thing is though, I am seeing that wind shear, so that is helpful for what I'm seeing, because nobody needs a hurricane. We do not want that at all. But again, I am watching that. I want you to know I'm on top of that, and I'll have that island specific information for you as we go forward. Big island, small island, all matter. So again, I'll be getting very specific with that. Share this channel to get that correct information out. And again, if that system gets a name, next name on the list is Brett. So plenty going on. A rain event getting a little more likely for the Caribbean. The possibility of a tropical storm moving in for some of us getting a little more likely. Tomorrow I'll really be able to fine tune that. Even maybe later today, I'll see how it goes. But more so tomorrow, we'll see how this system just develops as we go throughout the day. So lots to cover. Thank you for taking the time to subscribe. Thank you for sharing this channel. I appreciate that. I'll get to your comments as we go through the day. Have a good day ahead.